Root to almost every failed relationship is lack of communication.
That's right. In fact, Walt Disney once said that every issue is a communication issue. And I know in my life, when it comes to relationships, that is 100% true. So what are we going to be talking about today?
We're just going to provide you guys with 3 tips that have really helped us with better communication, and these aren't exclusive to age gap couples. These are for everybody, and not necessarily even in a relationship.
That's right. We are a little bit unique because we're obviously in an age gap relationship, but if you're honest with yourself, you know that you always have communication gaps in any relationship. And so we want to talk to you today, friends, about what you can start doing today to improve your communication.
So tip number 1 is have weekly check-ins.
That's right. We set aside Tuesday as a time to check in. How are you doing? How are we doing? And I think most importantly, are there any issues that we need to talk about? Anything that we need to go over? Now, obviously, we're communicating all day and all week long, but having a specific time where you specifically talk about, any issues, any challenges, how do you think you're doing, whether it's okay, good, great, just knowing that you're going to have that conversation, that kind of communication on a set and steady basis, I think it's been a real game changer.
It has, and it isn't exclusive to issues that are going on in your relationship. You can use it to discuss the goals that you've set or the direction that you see the relationship going in, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, we have a lot going on, and it's easy for me to forget that we're going to such and such place on Tuesday night, or we fly to wherever on Friday morning. And so doing the weekly check-in isn't just an opportunity to clear up and clean up communication, but to look at the calendar and see what's next, and where are we on getting the garage cleaned up? Where are we on making sure that we spend a little more time with each other, a little more time with family?
Yeah, and I won't say that if you communicated right during the week, you won't have anything to talk about during those weekly check-ins. But for a lot of the time for us, we do communicate during the week, and as a result, we don't have anything to talk about that's necessarily negative during those weekly check-ins.
Yeah, and I think this leads to our second tip. Recognize your attachment style. Have an appreciation for where or how your attachment style leans into your communication style. I am admittedly an avoidant. I have historically been in relationships, starting with family of origin, where it was absolutely not okay to communicate your wants, absolutely not okay to communicate your needs. And so it was just safer and easier to avoid everything. And it nearly destroyed my relationship with Lindsay.
If you're avoiding an issue, it does not make it go away. And same thing with me, if you're anxious about an issue, it does not make it go away. And so the best way to deal with those issues is to securely talk about it and know that you've created a safe enough space to bring forth your issue to your partner.
Yeah, and it took me a while to realize that, the issue's not going to go away. You're going to have to deal with it eventually. But then secondly, to know that Lindsay's a safe person. I can communicate my wants. I can communicate my needs. I can call out issues and challenges that I'm struggling with. You've got to have that level of trust, and that trust builds when you communicate safely and you communicate clearly.
Yeah, that's kind of a side point, that both of you need to be a safe person, because I know at first I was not necessarily a safe person for him to communicate to, and vice versa.
So, and again, think about your family of origin and the communication style that you grew up in terms of your relationship with your parents, but maybe more importantly, the communication style that you observed between your parents. Quick story. I'll never forget flying across the country. This was about 30 years ago, from San Francisco to the Panhandle of Florida. My mother picked us up. We'd been traveling all day and we were hungry. And I mentioned to my mom as we were driving back to her house from the airport that we were all hungry, and she started screaming at me, "You're hungry? How in the world can you possibly be hungry?" Well, A, she had stopped at her favorite restaurant right before picking us up at the airport. And then B, my mother, God bless her, if it wasn't an issue for her, then it wasn't okay for it to be an issue with anybody. So I learned at a very early age to not have wants, to not have needs, and God forbid, don't express them.
And for me, growing up in my entire life, abandonment has been a big issue. And so whenever that kind of came up in the context of this relationship, I would get super anxious about it and think, oh, you know, if I don't do this, that, or the other, he's gonna leave, or this is gonna end, and it's gonna be awful.
Yeah, and think about this for just a second. The combination of she's being anxious, she's wanting and needing to know more, and it sort of triggers me. My reaction and response is to avoid, and so we're just in this hopeless cycle and feedback loop of all I want to do is avoid. All she wants to do is be anxious about the fact that I'm avoiding. Sound familiar? Our second tip is to figure out what is your attachment style, and again, how does it impact and influence the way that you communicate.
We're gonna come out with videos soon talking about how we overcame our attachment styles and both moved to a more secure attachment style. And of course, that doesn't mean that we don't still struggle with those issues.
You mean we're not gonna avoid talking about that?
But we have gotten significantly better, and as a result, this relationship has gotten so much better.
It has, and that leads us to our third tip: have fun with it. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing in life. It doesn't really matter who your partner is. What's the point if you're not having fun? Gosh, a couple of years ago, we were at Disneyland and we're sitting inside the Golden Horseshoe where Walt and Lillian Disney celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary and enjoying the piano player who was doing an amazing job. And then, I don't know, a minute later, an hour later, we saw the same piano player still dressed up in his Music Man garb crossing Main Street. And I just casually commented to Lindsay, he's
just a crossing the street boy.
Now, that doesn't sound like much. It has become a major main way for her and I to communicate to each other.
Yes, and the biggest thing for us is we needed to move past the passive aggression in that communication style, but if you're confused about how that's helpful for us, here's an example. Just last week, we were playing MLB The Show, and also I was making oatmeal. And we take turns between innings, and he had just finished his turn and it was my turn, but I'm making oatmeal. And so I walk in, I give him his oatmeal, I start walking away, and he says something along the lines of,
"She's just walking away while we're trying to play a baseball game, girl."
And I said, "He's just doesn't understand that the oatmeal needs to be stirred every minute, boy."
Now, in my defense, women are much better multitaskers than men. So of course I had forgotten that she was trying to play the game, be with me, and make breakfast.
Yes, and there's a difference between he's just doesn't understand, blah, blah, blah. You have to have the appropriate tone when you say it, and in those simple two sentences, I learned that he didn't know why I was walking away. I told him why I was walking away, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's an incredibly comfortable way for us to communicate.
Yeah, so right now we're thinking, we hope that you, he or she, are just hitting the subscribe button, boys and girls. Or just hitting the like button, boys and girls. Again, that's a way of communicating that's fun and gets the issue, your want, your need out on the table. That, I think for both of us, feels a lot less threatening.
This form of communication for us doesn't have to be your form of communication, but you should find something that you and your partner feel safe doing, and that's kind of funny at the same time.
Yeah, you need a form of communication that is functional, that is helpful, that is productive, and fun.
So a summary of our 3 points are: have weekly check-ins, figure out your attachment style and continue to communicate over the week, and have fun.
That's right. Recognize if you get the communication piece right, everything else in the relationship is going to get a lot easier. Get out of your head, get into your heart, talk to your partner, communicate with your partner, and know that you can close that gap and both of you will be better as a result.
Yes, and reminder for the anxious attachments, the issue is not going to change if you're anxious about it. And for the avoidance, it's not going to go away.
That's right. And don't avoid hitting the like and subscribe button.